Hello out there, this is Wakeangel2K1 coming at you with a personal custom project. It is Vaati, the Wind Sorcerer, from such popular Zelda games as Four Swords Adventures and the Minish Cap. Although he hasn't really appeared in much else. Even in Hyrule Warriors Legends, a game for the 3DS that introduced a whole bunch of cel-shaded Zelda characters, including Tetra, Toon Link, and even the King of Red Lions, Daphnis Nohansen Hyrule, along with the little Rito girl whose name escapes me at the moment. She was one of the sages in Wind Waker. Yeah, like, they brought out all those popular cel-shaded characters, but they missed Vaati? How could they do that? Anyway, this is something that occurred to me while I was looking up at my collection and saw just how similar Toon Link actually looks to Vaati. I mean, it might be the case that everybody in the cel-shaded universe kind of looks the same because they just got those big old eyes on a big round head, but also it could be that Vaati's meant to be sort of a dark mirror of Link, maybe? Well, whatever. Let's actually get around to making the toy, because I'm probably boring you. So, of course, I had to do a bit of dismantling here, and this is where I found out that although the head is actually made out of a softer plastic, the large portion of his body is made out of that stiffer type of plastic that doesn't soften when you heat it up, meaning that the body had to be mostly in one piece while I did that. But let's get back to that a bit later. For now, we're going to concentrate on the head. The first thing I did was cut off a bit of Link's hair. This actually reveals that the head is actually mostly hollow inside. Probably explains why the figure's not quite as top-heavy as you'd think it would be. And then I had to sculpt on the stuff that makes Vaati Vaati. For example, his hat comes down over his forehead instead of hanging off the back of his head like Link's does. So that's of course why I had to remove the top of Link's head and replace it with that crown-looking thing that's on the front of Vaati's hat, which I'm just going to call the Minish Cap if I ever had to refer to it. I also had to sculpt on Vaati's bangs, which come down to cover one of his eyes, and of course his sweet Wind Sorcerer mullet that comes off the back of his head. The sideburns I left pretty much the same because, you know, Vaati still has sideburns. Now, I actually put on a poll on my DeviantArt page asking my fans if they considered Vaati to be more of a purple or more of a blue, because that initial image I had was a bit, let's say, ambiguous on the color scheme. It can go either way depending on your color monitors. Your settings on your monitor. Color settings. But the general consensus is that Vaati is supposed to be purple, so purple's where I went. I went with a really light shade of lilac for his skin, a slightly darker lilac for his hair and most of his clothes, and an outright purple for things like his hat and cape and stuff. So, let's move on to the body modifications. Like I said, apart from the forearms, the body couldn't really be dismantled, but fortunately there wasn't really a lot to do anyway. Just the puffy wizard pants that Vaati likes to wear, a bit of a raised collar, and a new belt buckle. So again, with a nice paint job, the collar is purple because technically it's part of the cape, and the clothes are that darker lilac, and of course his pants are red. And although I really didn't go through the effort to sculpt his toes because they're just so darn tiny, I did paint the feet to look like his sandal wraps. Now the forearms I also painted, although you probably noticed a speck of green on the actual joint. That is because the joint is made out of that unpaintable plastic, the same kind of stuff as like a Figma joint. That is going to be the bane of my existence, and every time I move this character's arms, I'm going to expose a bit of green on the inside of his elbows, which is annoying, but pretty much unavoidable. That means the only part left was the cape. I had to find a kind of material that would be flexible, but also wouldn't fray. And the answer came from a Dollar Tree, where they give away these things for $1. It's one of those things that you walk door to door to get Halloween candy in. So yeah, it actually turned out to be just what the doctor ordered. it's easy to work with, and it's even pretty much the right color. So I wrapped that around the shoulders, a little bit of snipping, and if you look up close to the collar, you can see some of the seams where I cut and stuck it on with some crazy glue. With that done, of course, all that was left to do was stick his head back on and, take a look at the completed Vaati figure. So let's do that. Well, there he is, the Wind Sorcerer himself. I really like Vaati. I don't understand why they haven't put him in more games as even just as a sub boss, in Four Sword Adventures, it turned out that he was just kind of like the sub boss to the True Awakening of Ganon. Minish Cap had an interesting origin with him being this tiny little person that put on a hat. I think maybe just like with the Skull Kid's Majora's Mask, the hat maintained the malevolence and probably recreated the Wind Sorcerer. But, I really like this villain. He's cool looking. Alright, so I didn't think that World of Nintendo would ever get around to making him, so I did. And I hope you guys like him as much as I do. This is Wakeangel2K1 signing off.